Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I'm just a little bit jet lagged because I had to fly all the way from the Netherlands here, and it's a little bit late. It's almost late night in the Netherlands, so I'm feeling a little bit sleepy. So sorry if I will sleep on stage. So the topic that I'm going to present today is going to be about importing products. I think it's the most exciting part of any Magento customizations that you can ever imagine. I'm just going to share a little bit of information about me. If someone doesn't know me, I always tell at the conferences, you can always blame me about all the Magento 1 issues because I was a part of the first 5 core developers. So you can throw tomatoes at me if you'd like to. So probably you all came to this talk because you saw this very nice title, like under 10 minutes, 1 million of a product. So we are going to progress to this number through all of the talk, and I will tell you about all the journey I did with importing products all over my career up to this year when I developed a very nice tool that will facilitate this kind of solution. So first of all, I want to put a disclaimer that building an import is incredibly hard to build it correctly. So you have to arrange a lot of stuff very precisely in order to make sure that your import is never going to lock tables in the places where you don't expect it to lock. Another thing that is important, have any one of you tried DataFlow in 2008? Raise your hands. So, oh, it's like 6 people. It's a lot of us, right? Any one of you know what is DataFlow is? The rest of the audience? Probably not. OK, we'll walk through it a little bit anyway. So the DataFlow is a module that was released together with Magento, first public release. And it was importing product one by one. And it was doing it in a very interesting way. So first of all, it stored all the CSV file values into the database table. Then you would sit on the admin page, and it would run an AJAX request to import every single product. So you would sit there, and you would see nice progress bar telling, hey, 1 product has been imported, 1 product has been imported, 1 product has been imported. So it was a very nice experience. And I must confess, I was part of implementation of that import at that time. So it was 2008. What can you tell? Good times. So then also this, oh, it's a little bit not fitting on the screen, I think, but yeah, it was using the product model to save the data. So it was using the same model that was used in admin panel in order to save every single product. So that's why it was slow. And every single save operation on the model was resulting in reindexation. So it was quite nice to see every single product appear on the front end. But it's also a painful experience if you need to get those products as fast as possible to be sold online. Right? You don't want just to sit and wait till all those products are getting imported. So another thing is very important, like if you accidentally close a browser window, it means your import process just stopped. You cannot proceed anymore. You just have to visit it again and probably restart it. There was no way to resume the import. So it was very fun time. So imagine like apparently you lose your internet connection, and the products are not completely imported. So let's give it some ranking speed. So I have some nice emojis to represent every single import iteration with particular emojis. So this one I call a confident snail. So the performance is 2 free products per second. If you, let's say, would like to import 5,000 products, it would take you around 20 minutes just staring into the admin panel page. And at that time, actually in 2008, you had to have this tab being active. Otherwise, AJAX request wouldn't run. So you actually had to stare at the admin page in order to see how the import was progressing. Then, around 2011, ImportExport module came and saved us, because there was complete change of the approach how the data was imported into Magento. And this one still was storing the batches of the data into the database. So it was first reading these big CSV files that you were uploading into Magento import-export module. It was doing validation, and then was storing the validated data into database table. And then you would have to click import data button in order to import the stored data in a database into actual Magento product tables. And this time you don't need to go and wait till each product gets imported. It was done all in one HTTP request. Another thing that is important about this extension, it actually doesn't use product models, so it validates data separately. So there is a separate process of validation of the data you are importing than the validation process in your admin panel. And it uses also multi-row inserts, so it doesn't do it per product. It's much more faster than the original one. And also it has a little bit of a drawback. It doesn't run indexation. So you had to execute indexes manually after you were importing products with this indexer. So I call it Lucky Bunny. From point of view of performance, it's like 41 products per second. It's a huge achievement, like from 2-3 products per second. It's kind of like 10 times more products. Very nice improvement. It would take 2 minutes to import 5,000 products with this functionality. But we have some drawbacks, of course, because how without drawbacks in such a nice importer? First of all, it would use a lot of memory if you have a big enough data set, because this import works in such a way that it loads all of the product SKUs into a large array in PHP in order to know which product exists in our database and which not, in order to acquire a new product ID, in order to insert all the rest of the EAV data. Another thing, it's also slow in generating those primary keys, because for every single product, it had to execute a separate database query in order to retrieve the new entity ID. And yeah, it's 2 drawbacks that are a problem in this module. Then, in 2015, we have Magento 2.x being released with also import-export extension. However, I don't have a rating for this extension because it's still the same Lucky Bunny, because it's the same base functionality as in Magento 1. You also have more complex file format over here that is much more different than in Magento 1. In Magento 1, you had multi-row format for inserting different configurable products and so on. Now you have a separate column called additional data, where you have to know how to build query strings in order to set some values. It's a little bit not easy for merchants, I think, to edit this kind of a data format. Also, it is slower on complex product data. So if you have configurable products, and you have simple products, and you have images, and you have links to other products to show related products or upsells, it's going to be painfully slow. Also, it adds additional single statement inserts, so it introduces a little bit more database queries per import than in Magento 1. So we had this 2015, it was Magento 2 year, and now in 2019 I had a nice idea in mind for a long time. I wanted to create something that would import products much more faster, but I didn't have a project to do it because I just don't want to do it in my free time. I want to do it for someone to get paid for it. So I got a nice project to actually do it. Customer wanted to migrate from Magento 1 to Magento 2. And instead of using data migration tool, we decided we will export everything into files and then we will import those files into Magento 2. So what we've built for this customer is actually I completely separated one big CSV file into separate feeds. So I decided, OK, it makes sense to separate the data because one big file is hard to edit. But when you have a feed of the data, first of all, it's easier to process. And second of all, it's also easier to manage. So I have a main entity feed where I just have a SKU, type of the product, is it configurable, simple, bundle, whatever, and attribute set. So this is the only information that you need to create the main entity record of the product in Magento. Then we have a separate feed with all the attributes. This is our product name, description, status, price, anything per store view, just also being available in a separate feed. Then we have also category relations. So you specify a SKU of a product, and you specify the category to which this product is going to be assigned. And then you also can specify position, something that is impossible to do in standard Magento. In standard Magento, when you run an import, you cannot say, hey, this product should have this position in this category. Because Magento only allows you to specify categories through comma, right? You cannot just import category positions. And then I specify configurable options. If you have a configurable product, you want to specify for which configurable, which attribute is actually configurable with custom label. Also separate feed for images, and so on. So for every single data type we have in a product, we just have a separate feed. It works very well for this customer because they also have a PIM system, they have ERP system, and different systems produce different feeds. So it was very easy to integrate in such a way. Another key idea I was having for this importer is lazy entity resolving. So I don't want to have a big array of all the SKUs I have in a database in order to find out what is the entity ID of this product by SKU. So I came up with an idea, let's make this process lazy loaded. So I will not try to resolve it myself. I will just create a component that would insert all this data into Magento database tables, and this component would resolve it automatically without me having any involvement into the way how those SKUs get resolved to the final entity ID in its select statement. So first of all, by creating this kind of lazy entity resolution, I reduced the memory requirements for importing all the data set. So now I don't need to have gigabytes of memory being used by my PHP script. I can easily import 1 million SKUs with only 60 megabytes. So I just load SKUs as I go through the file. So I don't load everything into memory in one big scope. I just process it gradually. Also, the code became much more cleaner and more readable to maintain as well, because I don't need to clamp in, hey, what is the entity ID here? What is the entity ID there? I just specify SKU value, and that's all. Also, creating this kind of lazy entity resolution allows me to automatically create new product IDs without creating entities by myself. I just can rely that my resolver will automatically assign me a new product ID if this SKU is not yet existing in my Magento store. So here's a little bit of a code. I hope you can see it, but looks like the quality of this one is not that good on the screen, but you later on will be able to access slides, so don't worry. First of all, we have our resolver instantiation. So in the resolver, you see that I actually configure the lookup information. I say that this resolver will take some data from catalog product entity. It will search the data by SKU field, and then it will retrieve an entity ID by this SKU from this table. Then I have my insert on duplicate component that tells that, hey, I will insert it into varchar table of product. And the columns I will use entity ID, attribute ID, store ID, and value. And then I will also supply a resolver that I initialized earlier over there. And then in a loop, it will just read all the CSV, and it will actually do something like this. It will create a new with rows call. It will create this new unresolved SKU. It will supply all the other values, and then another row is another unresolved SKU, and so on. So I don't try to access IDs here. I just create a new object that will be resolved at a later stage when I execute my insert and duplicate into the database. So in case if I don't have product and I didn't configure my resolver to create these new products for me, it will just skip non-existing SKUs. So I don't care if SKU is invalid, I just skip it. I can also create a separate feed with all the skipped SKUs, but for this customer it was not required, but it's also possible to do without a problem. So now let's take a look a little bit how actually I assign those new after-generated entity IDs. So here I have insert into catalog product entity. I just insert all the values within a transaction. So yeah, I started transactions, and I insert some values with unresolved keys. And then I actually try to retrieve those values with a select. And as soon as I retrieve those entity IDs, I just roll back a transaction. So I completely revert everything that I inserted into product table, because MySQL assigns an increment ID for a table in atomic way. And this process allows me to make sure that every time I assign some IDs, this will never be repeated for any other MySQL connection over there. So I already reserve those IDs, and I can use it in any way I want. In such a way, I can assign new entity IDs for thousands of products, 10,000s of products, it doesn't matter. It's very nice little trick with MySQL, just create something in transactions, just roll back it later on. Another thing that is quite nice in this import is actually I'm using prepared statements. And this is one of the key features over there. When you actually try to insert something into Magento database, you have to build a huge SQL query. So what I do with prepared statements, actually, I compile a single query for a constant batch size. Let's say I know that I will insert data into this table in batches of thousands. So I create a prepared statement with these batches of thousands of rows. Then I send only the data needed to be populated in this table instead of creating again this query. So I save a lot of time on PHP side to not create this insert statement. I just execute the prepared statement all the time. And it also, this kind of an approach with prepared statements actually reduces time of all my insert on duplicate statements into Magento database by half. So like half of the time is actually spent on parsing these huge MySQL queries that you've sent to MySQL. And inserting the data into file system for MySQL is a very simple process. So let's take a look at the speed. So this one I rate as a rocket. It's kind of 450 products per second. It takes something like 11 seconds to import 5,000 products. So not a bad result. But it's still not enough. It's not good enough for me. You know, title of my talk was 1 million products in 10 minutes, and 450 products per second doesn't make it, right? So yeah, it took 45 minutes to import it with this kind of an approach, to import this 1 million SKUs. It's still much more faster than standard Magento import, because with standard Magento import, it would probably take you a couple of days. But yeah, 45 minutes is not what I was aiming for. So I realized, yeah, but you know, like this import is actually a sequential process. What I'm doing right now, I actually first insert in one table, then insert in another table, another table, another table. So I just waste time. Those tables, they have completely different data. They never intersect with each other. So in the end, right, I can actually parallelize all those inserts into separate tables. So what I did, I made an asynchronous proof of concept that concurrently inserts all the data into all the tables at the same time. So how it works under the hood. Each target table into which I want to insert data creates a new MySQL connection. Then there's created an entity resolver for every single source table with also separate connection in order to assign those new entity IDs. And then each feed is also processed concurrently by using round-robin mechanism, because you cannot read a file, unfortunately, in PHP asynchronously. You still have to do it synchronously. So I have to read a row from this file, a row from this file, and a row from this file. In such a way, I can concurrently read all of them and spread out the inserts into different tables. And during MySQL query execution, PHP actually goes through the rest of the files and creates another upcoming insert statements. So I don't waste time by waiting till my MySQL query gets executed. I just continuously prepare the next insert statements, prepare the next unresolved SKU values, and so on. So the speed grade of this one is actually Flash, because it's 1800 of products per second. And yeah, it took me only 9 minutes to import this 1 million products with this approach. So I want to tell you that there is some good news about it as well, because this fall, this module will be open source and will be available to be used by anyone, absolutely for free, for any agency. I just want to contribute it back to the community. So thank you very much. Any questions?
Is this thing on? Fantastic. Any questions?
I'm pretty live. So where can we follow you to be able to find that extension when it's ready?
Oh, don't you see? Oh, I think something wrong with connection, because I think I turned the slide, but it's actually froze. Yeah. You can follow me for the email or find a URL on GitHub, but it's not appearing on your screen. It's on my screen, but not there. I don't know what's happening.
It's a secret.
Yeah.
Every good thing is a secret.
We have the promised land.
Here it is.
There you go.
So.
Right on. OK. Take a picture of that screen. Who has the next question? I've got time for one more question. Going once, going twice. All right. One more round of applause for Ivan. Thank you so much.